Starting Your Painting Papers by Doris Charest. So what you're going to need for this exercise is a brush, a palette knife, and a sponge, and some paint. For this first step, I'm going to work in watercolor, and in the second one, I will work in acrylic, so you can see a bit of a difference. I'm going to start with spattering. Blue and brown to me look great together, and I'm going to spatter some of that paint around and then work it. So working it for me is spreading it around and adding more stuff. So I spread it with a palette knife and I sponge different colors. I spread those sponge marks. I really try to create textures and a softer kind of background. This background is going to be softer than what I usually do in acrylics. Remember that watercolor dries 25% lighter. I'm going to make all kinds of various marks with my brush and the sponge and try and create a pattern. So here I'm using my teacup and I'm creating circular marks. I paint the bottom of the cup. I just stamp it. I'm trying to make enough marks so that when I cut up the paper, there's some interesting parts. Now this is watercolor, so I can use salt, and I add salt here to create extra texture. The step where we let it dry. What you're going to create is a window. So you take an old piece of paper. This is part of an old print. I cut out a window. Actually, I should say I draw a window and then I cut it out. And we're going to use that to spot some interesting areas on this paper. So I have a window and I place it in different parts of the painting and I trace. I trace those areas that are interesting that I think would make a great beginning for a painting. Remember, these are mostly beginnings. They could be final paintings, depending on how they work out, but the idea is to create a beginning. You want to eliminate that white paper that scares everybody and have some interesting ways to start your painting. And I look for as many as I can find, and I just draw whatever I see that I think might be interesting. That might be better, this might be better. In real life, I would probably cut up even more, but this is just to show you the beginnings and how to get started on these cards. I call them cards. I call them idea cards. And what we do is just cut them up, find the interesting parts, and use them to start the painting. You can line them up and then see which one you like the best. Some might be more interesting if I combine them. So sometimes I combine the cards because one has a good background with lots of subtle tones and the other one has some really strong marks that I could use. So I line them up like this and I decide, well, which one will work well. Or maybe I can combine two of them. So it's up to you. I will show you what to do. Here I'm cutting a bigger window. I find these cards a little small, so sometimes I cut a bigger window, and I'll probably go back on that paper and find some bigger parts. But the choice is yours, the size of window that you like. I'm going to get ready to start my painting. So do this step now, and we'll see you in the next section.